What's up, college sports fans? I'm Stucky.
I'm Colin Wilson.
I'm Mike Calabrese.
I'm Maria Marino.
I'm Charlie DiSturco, and we're excited that the Big Bets on Campus brand is launching its very own YouTube channel.
You'll be able to find every episode of the BBOC podcast, live shows, and other college sports content on this new channel.
Not only will the channel be dedicated to betting on college sports, but you'll also be able to find exclusive interviews with former college athletes,
college football power rankings,
and updates on other topics like the brand new College Football 25 video game series and the ins and outs of the recruiting trail all the way down to the transfer portal.
Whether you're into college football,
college basketball,
college baseball, or any of the college sports,
we are the home for college sports, and BBOC is the channel for you.
Make sure you subscribe so you don't miss any of the action. I'll see you there.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Action Network podcast. I'm your host, Chris Raybon, and this is your NFL Week 1 betting preview for a 6th consecutive season. We will build our Sunday six-pack of best bets with the help of my co-host, the Prime Minister of Degenerate Nation, a man who went 63% against the spread on his picks last year, Stuck. Welcome to Week 1. Good to be back with you. How you feeling?
Yeah, feeling great. I mean, it's go time now. Like injury report time. College football's already started. NFL's here. We're in the grind for the foreseeable future. It's a labor of love. It's tiring, but it's a tired feeling that I will never get tired of. And yeah, I'm excited to go. I got my revenge on you last season. Now, clean slate. And the goal, as always, is just overall, as a duo, get everyone in the profit and pick more winners than losers as a duo. So, yeah, I'm happy to be back and excited to talk some ball all season.
Oh, yeah. And we've been doing this, not to toot our own horn, but we've been doing what you mentioned for each of those other 5 seasons that we've been doing this. So if you're new here, welcome and let's lock in. If you're back, longtime listener, we appreciate you. Thanks for tuning in again. You know the deal. We'll get it rocking with the Thursday night football game. Then we'll hop right in to our Sunday six-pack. And before we get into the games, just a reminder, our friends Chad and Simon over at the Favorites podcast, they brought back their free $100,000 NFL Pick'em contest, totally free to sign up at favorites.actionnetwork.com. It's real easy, just 5 picks against the spread every week. So one less than we're doing here. And top 10 finishers each week get huge cash prizes, including a $40K first place prize, cash prizes each and every week, over $100,000 up for grabs. Again, totally free to play. Sign up and make your Week 1 picks right now. Favorites.actionnetwork.com. All right. With that said, let's jump into Thursday night. The opener. Once again, it's the Chiefs because they keep winning Super Bowls with this guy named Mahomes. Baltimore at KC. The Chiefs, 3-point favorites. The total is 47. Stuck. You're always locked in on the Baltimore Ravens. That's your squad. So I'm going to let you carry here, even though you mentioned the word tired about 4 times in the intro. And I know that's because, you know, as our producers struggled to get this thing going, you took a little nap on the floor. So I hope you're refreshed and ready to go, because I'm tired and traumatized of reliving the one Gus Edwards carrier, however many it was, from the last time these teams played, because it was absolutely ridiculous. So with that being said, how do you see this one, the rematch, playing out here?
Yeah, early season technical difficulties on the back end, little rust. That's to be expected. So I was able to grab a quick little 5-minute nap. So now I'm feeling nice and refreshed. But yeah, before we jump into the games, I do think it's relevant. I should set up Week 1. As of late, unders have ruled the day in Week 1 over the past few years. I think part of that is the defenses are ahead of the offenses. Part of that is also just more quarterbacks resting in preseason and not getting in sync with the offense. For what it's worth, 10 teams chose to sit their quarterbacks for the entire preseason. The Ravens are one of them, along with the Rams, Lions, Browns, Cowboys, Chargers, Eagles, Jets, Falcons, and Cardinals. Lions and Rams and Cowboys and Browns actually play each other as for the teams that did just that. And you historically have seen quarterbacks, come out with a little bit of a rust from a production standpoint. So keep that in mind in week one. And also underdogs in week one over the past 10 years have hit it around a 57% clip. So underdogs and unders have ruled the day of late in week one. Doesn't guarantee future results, doesn't mean anything going forward, but just keep that in mind. And I also want to just bring up, before we jump into the Chiefs-Ravens game, new kickoff rules, because I'm really excited to see, I have it modeled out for, a little over a point uptick in scoring. But I'm really curious to see, number one, the touchback rate. Number two, if any teams, it was the preseason, so you're not going to see anything really innovative or unique. So I'm curious to see teams like the Ravens, who are always ahead of the curve from a special teams perspective with John Harbaugh, his background being a special teams coach. I'm curious to see what new wrinkles and show up and when, right? It might not be week one of a regular season game, and it might not be the first kickoff. You might see it, teams might hold something back till later in the season. Although Ravens-Chiefs, pretty big game, as both teams have aspirations for the number one overall seed in the AFC. But any thoughts before I share mine on the new kickoff rules and their impact?
Yeah, so I agree. When I kind of threw it into my numbers, it equated to about a point, or maybe like 0.9 or something like that. And that's in the scoring. I think the yardage will remain fairly consistent. So that from what I gathered over the 3 weeks of the preseason, it was about a 2-yard difference in field position. So I think it was like the starting field position was on average, I think, the 28. And that's going against other preseasons just for consistency. So I do think it'll make a difference. I do think, unders or totals, I should say, early in the year. And you kind of say this every year, Stuck, because they've been changing rules a little more frequently. There was the penalty changes, then there was COVID, then there was all these things. So early in the year, maybe, just monitor totals a little closer. But this is an underdog under show anyway. So, we say week one, hey, we're going to be kind of favoring those sides, but really that's all year. But with that being said, yeah, I do think totals should tick up a bit. But last year, the average score was 21.8 per team. So I think the average total is 43.6 or 7. And part of that was just, okay, that's just the league average. But part of that, there's a lot of backup quarterbacks who had to start. I think 66 different quarterbacks started. So there's also just going to be a little bit of a scoring uptick from what we expect to just be a more normal season in terms of injuries this year. So that's also something to keep in mind. So got to be a little more careful with unders early in the year, at least, to monitor.
Yeah, league is cyclical too. Offenses, you have modern offenses that defenses are trying to craft unique schemes for. We've seen the evolution of that from, back to your cover 2 to cover 3 to, Fangio to now the McDonald Ravens tree. We've seen the evolution, but the offenses, I think, eventually, when is it going to be? Are going to maybe take a step forward. Is this Ravens tree defense the answer to that? So that's always fascinating to watch. And yeah, you mentioned it. We'll find out. Number one, monitor the new kickoff or what that impact is. And then if, hey, there's just a huge emphasis on this penalty, right? And then what that does. And sometimes that's just a short-term effect because then the league just, forgets about it. And it's just a thing early in the season. But getting to the marquee game, do you want to add anything?
Oh, no, I was just going to say there's one other thing I think kind of affects it a little is 1-2 personnel is starting to come in vogue again, which means 2 tight ends on the field. And that can be more efficient, but I also feel like it limits explosives a little bit in certain spots. So that could kind of affect scoring as well. So that's also something to kind of monitor. And I think the Ravens, that's a good segue into the Ravens because, something has to change with their offense. I mean, Monken's probably on the hot seat a little more than people think. Do you think we see more Isaiah? Obviously, you're going to run the ball more at Derrick Henry, but do you see more two tight ends, and do you think that's can be effective in this spot?
Yeah, that's a good point that you bring up. That's why one of the reasons a big nickel is coming back in vogue throughout the NFL instead of just having like another coverage corner on the field. More teams are going to start to utilize a big nickel. But yeah, this game, fascinating game. Obviously, a rematch of the AFC Championship game where Todd Monken had that head-scratching game plan. I'm super curious to see how the Ravens play this. I would assume just psychologically, you got to come out. You got Derrick Henry. You have questions along the offensive line, right? You lost 3 starters. You have a number of rookies you're going to be relying on, and you're in a hostile environment. The Chiefs' weakness is still their run defense. You have Lamar Jackson in his legs. He might be a little rusty throwing the ball. I imagine you got to come out here, line up, and just run the ball with Lamar. Go to more 2 tight end sets, which I think you'll see this season, assuming Likely and Andrews both stay healthy. So, yeah, I expect the Ravens to go with a heavier rush attack, much more obviously than the AFC Championship game. But maybe Monken overthinks it, and they just say, no, that's what the Chiefs are going to think. So I'm so curious to watch that. But I think you got Derrick Henry. You have Lamar Jackson in his legs, hostile environment, offensive line questions. I think you got to lean on that run game early. But because you know that Steve Spagnuolo is going to test this offensive line. Offensive line was a strength last year, and he blitzed them in that AFC Championship game. You can expect that again. On the other side of the ball, when the Chiefs, they also have offensive line questions. Rookie starting at one tackle spot, other tackle spot was iffy last year. Interior obviously is elite. No Hollywood Brown here is worth mentioning. I don't think the Ravens are going to blitz much. You don't blitz Mahomes, and I just don't think they're going to be a heavy blitz team. So, when I look at this game, I expect the Ravens to come out with a good game plan. They're always well prepared off of rest season openers. John Harbaugh's 12-4 against the spread in season openers. He's the most profitable coach in the NFL in that department. So, yeah, I think that this game is probably going to start out pretty slow. I think the Ravens are going to lean on the run. I think the Chiefs are probably going to, maybe they take a shot. You got Worthy early, but I think the Ravens are going to try to keep everything in front of them. So I think this game's a feeling out process early on. And so I don't hate a look at the first half under. I also don't hate teasing the Ravens, right? Like I could give you stats for days on, Lamar as a dog has been dominant, absolutely dominant. But Mahomes is a favorite of 3 or less than a dog is dominant. Those wash each other out. So, yeah, I mean, I think this line, it's at 2.5 juiced heavily at some places. If you wanted to tease this up to, 8.5, and we'll talk about other teaser pieces later, I don't mind that. I think it should be a really good game. We're going to answer some questions. We're going to answer Chiefs tackle situation, how much Worthy can provide at wide receiver, the Chiefs secondary, right? So in their secondary, you lose L'Jarius Sneed, and now you're going to be moving your all-pro from slot to the outside. How that impact of everyone moving around in the secondary, what does that do to a Chiefs unit that was really good last year? And then on the Ravens side, it's that offensive line first and foremost. And then defensively, it's losing Mike McDonald and his game plans and his adjustments and his unique scheme. What is the drop-off there? Big day for Zach Orr and his preparation here, which I'll be looking for. So while we know that these are 2 of the better teams in the NFL, we know they're going to be players in the AFC. There's still a lot of questions that both teams have surrounding their rosters and staffs, in the Ravens case, coming into the year that I'm interested to watch. So I think the line is pretty close to fair, but based on how I see this playing out, teasing the Ravens up and lean under, maybe more of a preference to first half under. What do you see?
Yeah, this game to me is the least bettable game on the slate. And I've already been getting a lot of questions. Hey, the season opener, Chris, what are you betting? What are you doing for that one? Nothing. Because, and this is just, I'll just kind of set this up, for newer listeners, or even if you're more experienced, you should probably think about this. Primetime games, especially a game like this, a Thursday night game, there's so much action on it. The markets are usually going to be really sharp. And if you actually go and into Action Labs and look at, the cover rates, for example, for underdogs, which we, tend to be profitable on like Sunday, 1 p.m. That's where they tend to be highest. Unders, Sunday, 1 p.m. because there's so many games going on. I think for handicappers and books alike, it's just harder to kind of handicap so many things at once. Whereas like these primetime games, I just think they're a lot sharper and there's a lot less edges on them. So in general, if you're trying to really be profitable, a game like this is not a game like you need to be betting or feel like you have to make a bet on. And, I say that as a person that works for, a betting company, but it's true. Like these games are not generally your money makers. I know, Stuck, you tend to avoid Thursday night football altogether if you can, most weeks. So that's kind of my thoughts on this one.
What do you project Lamar Jackson pass attempts at, by the way?
Let's see. Too high. I got the Munkin factor now. Let's see. I have it at.
Well, while you're looking that up, yeah, just
30,
to summarize.
32.
Yeah, I think that's right around where the market is. I was thinking about going under based on the Ravens game plan, Chiefs, how they're going to play. I think this game's going to be slower.
Yeah.
But a lot of it's that's all going to come down to game script. I mean, if the Ravens are up, they're just going to go super run heavy. If they're trailing, then Lamar's going to have to throw it a bunch. So you're basically betting on them not getting behind or too far behind. So to summarize, I would lean under, maybe look at first half under based on how I think this game's going to start out. The Ravens script, Lamar, maybe some passing rust, and I don't mind a Ravens tease. And a good transition, because we're going to talk about the Friday night game before we go to the Sunday six-pack. I don't mind pairing, if you're just looking for a small bet on Thursday and Friday, I don't mind pairing. I know the total's a little higher, but the Packers and the Ravens in a teaser for your Thursday and Friday games, getting both of those dogs up to over 8 points.
Yeah, because you don't want to bet. I don't think you want to bet straight up on the Ravens as a dog. Like you said, Lamar dominant, 12-1 against the spread as a dog. So he's been dominant. But then you have Mahomes favored by 3 or less, or an underdog, 23-8 with one push, 74% against the spread. Andy Reid, week 1, 64% against the spread with KC. And you already mentioned Harbaugh, week 1, 75%. It's just strength.
It's one of those games where you're gonna see a lot of like betting content out there where you could just pull so many against the spread stacks is just to back your case, but it works for both sides here. Should be a hell of a game. But I think market is generally pretty close to right here.
Yeah, there's just a lot of uncertainty, like you said. But I do agree that the Ravens, I think it was kind of a message to Munkin, them acquiring Derrick Henry. Like, all right, you aren't gonna hand it to Gus Edwards and Justice Hill. Fine, we're gonna give you Derrick Henry, and you better hand the ball off. So I do think that's how they start the game, but it could go any which way from there. Let's jump to Friday night football. Packers, Eagles in Brazil. Eagles favored by 2.5. The total is 49. I'll have a write-up on this. And, from my vantage point, I lean Packers here. The Eagles did take some sharp money. So that's interesting. I do think the Eagles will be a lot better this year too, but I really, really like what I saw out of Jordan Love last year, especially over that second half of the season and into the playoffs. This Packer team was They were playing really well against tough competition. They beat the Chiefs, the eventual champs. They beat the Lions, who were the runners up in the NFC. They came within 3 points of beating the Niners, the eventual NFC representative of the Super Bowl. Love, I think he threw 5 picks in the second half and playoffs combined with, 28 touchdowns or something like that. So this is just a team on the rise. And then the Eagles, they still have their issues in the secondary, but they addressed those with some draft picks. Mitchell, DeJean. So it really comes down to me, how quick is this offense for Philly going to get fixed with Kellen Moore? Because they couldn't really pick up a blitz last year, and the Packers, their defense is going to look different. Joe Barry was fired, and they have a new defensive coordinator now. What's his name? Haffley. I always say his name wrong.
Jeff Hafley.
Hafley. There we go. Jeff Hafley. Excuse me. And obviously not much of a track record or anything like that, but I think Barry was just addition by subtraction. So I think there's a lot of upside with this Packer team. What do you see for this game?
Yeah, for what it's worth, LaFleur has been very successful in Green Bay as an underdog. I think he's 22-10 in that spot, covering by about 4 points per game. Also very successful early in the year. First 3 weeks of the season, 13-2 against the spread. On the flip side, Jalen Hurts not been great as a favorite away from home. 6-14-1 against the spread. Last 20 years, he's the 4th least profitable quarterback in that department. And yeah, you mentioned the defenses. I think it's a good place to start because you're going to have 2 defenses that look completely different. Add some variance into this game, which is going to be in Brazil. It's going to be hot. That adds some variance too. It's going to be super hot there. Obviously playing in a different country. So like preparation, travel, how does all that play into this? It adds some variance. But the defenses, you're going to have a Vic Fangio defense.
Yeah.
Right. That's usually complex and takes some time. There's, the key to it is you got to get pressure up front. You got to win your one-on-one battles. There's not going to be a ton of blitzing. And the Eagles do have some players on the defensive line. Packers on paper have a pretty good offensive line. We'll see how that right guard position shakes out. If it's Jordan Morgan, the rookie who played left tackle in college, or Sean Ryan, they might even rotate as they did sometimes last year. Right guard position for the Eagles looks like it's going to be Mekhi Becton. So that position for both teams I'm actually looking out for. But yeah, so the Eagles is their defense going to be in sync against this Packers offense that has all these weapons? And we're going to see Quinyon Mitchell most likely in the slot. Isaiah Rodgers dealing with a bit of a hand injury. Expect him to probably be out there, but he's probably going to start the second cornerback spot opposite Darius Slay. So, yeah, I do have some questions on the back end of that Eagles defense. Devin White, their linebacker, will be out for this game. So, yeah, questions there, then questions on the Packers defense. It's a 180 shift in what they're doing. They're going to, under Jeff Hafley, much more aggressive. 4-man front. You're going to see more man, more quarters coverage. I think that does fit their personnel better overall, but does it work right away? Are the linebackers able to adjust with the personnel shift up front? Is there going to be some growing pains? It's not only a 180 shift, schematically, it's also just mindset wise, like going from like the Joe Barry, like bend, don't break to we're going to be aggressive. So can they avoid coverage busts? Can the Eagles avoid coverage busts? So that's there's a lot of variance with the defenses in this game. So I think the line is a little, for a neutral field, giving a little bit too much love to the Eagles. Eagles got a ton of love all offseason in every market. And I think it's gone too far in every market, including this one. Flat 3, I would lean Packers and potentially play them, but I don't mind a teaser here as well. But the one thing I will mention with teasers is I don't go crazy with teasers early in the year because there is added variance. And teasers, you want to tease teams across 3 and 7 either direction, but you're getting the most value when there's less variance, right? So lower total games, and maybe later in the season when the market's more efficient, that's when teasers even have more value. But I don't mind here. Look, you want some Thursday, Friday action, I'm probably going to do it myself. This is after Raybon just gave a lecture, and you don't have to bet it. But you want a teaser for Thursday, Friday? We were crossing 3 and 7 with the Packers. I show a little bit of value on in the Ravens, so I think we'll keep it with the one possession. Fine with it. But should be a good game. Both of these games are awesome ways to start the season.
Yeah, and the Packers really, I think, are the only side on this one, just because it's a neutral field, right? So the Eagles are favored by 2.5. It has touched 3 at certain points. Maybe you can get a juiced up 3. I'm actually considering just playing a juiced up 3 for the Packers, because 3 points is first of all, 1 point, for people newer to the show, just kind of wondering, how we do this. 1 point, the difference there is a lot bigger than you might think. So the Packers are right there. Like, they're on the rise. We know what they did over the second half of the season. They were the better team over the second half of the season than the Philadelphia Eagles, who, started 10-1 and kind of fell off. My questions are really on the defensive side for the Packers. How quickly does their transition, happen? How quickly does the improvement happen? Because every year, these last few years, it's been, they haven't played up to their talent level. But on paper, I don't make the Packers more than about a point, little over a point worse than the Eagles. So to be getting 2.5 already, I think it's kind of like when I first saw the line, I was like, oh, the Eagles are the home team. That's why this line is like 3. And then I was like, wait a minute, it's in Brazil. It's a neutral field. So yeah, I would lean Packers here. I'll probably be on them. Would love the line to hit 3, but it probably will not again. So look out for my write-up on actionnetwork.com and in the app. But the Packers are the side for me.
Yeah, Eagles, by the way, look ahead market, not as efficient, lower limits, but Eagles look ahead market, 4-point favorites at home next week against Atlanta. And you're going to tell me they're 3-point favorites in a neutral field against the Packers? That doesn't jive to me. So yeah, 3, it's Packers or nothing. No feel. I have no feel on the total because there's a lot of variance with both of these defenses, and I'll just have my eye on that Eagles secondary, the scheme changes for the Packers, how they're picking it up, the fit there. So good one to watch and good data point for both.
Yeah, the trends lean under. Primetime unders 49 or higher since 2005, 109.79, 58%. And then Ron Torbett will be the referee since 2020. So the last 4 seasons, unders in games he's reffed 39 and 22, 64%. So with that being said, I could see both of these teams putting up a lot of points. I think the offenses are the strength of these teams for now. Now, both of the defenses could be improved. That's the thing. You just don't know how much. So, yeah, I think the total is a little shakier. And we also mentioned there's going to be variance with the new kickoff rules. So I would stay away from the total. I think if you're looking for a play in this game, it's the Packers. Either you tease them up or you just play them outright. Play them on the money line if you want. It's a neutral field, so I don't think you're losing much of an edge there. All right, if you're new here, our Sunday 6-pack record speaks for itself. You can go and look at all the picks in the Action Network app. They are tracked under the Sunday 6-pack account if you go to the follow tab. All right, let's get into it.
Thirsty for action? Let's crack open the Sunday 6-pack.
I'm going to go for my first pick of the 2024 Week 1 Sunday 6-pack. Feels weird to say. I'm going with the Carolina Panthers +4 against the New Orleans Saints. What better way to start off the 2024 Sunday 6-pack season than by betting on the Panthers, who never led in the fourth quarter last year. But week one is just like in college football. Week 1 is tough for me in the NFL. A lot of times I bet, I'm betting on these markets have been open for a while. But I don't really have data points, spots, looking for schematic changes. So a lot of it I'm just observing. How I approach week 1 for a lot of my bets is I'm looking for some good dog spots, the dogs that could be undervalued. I'm also just betting on my convictions and the things that I felt during the offseason. And my first win total bet from our preseason podcast before the draft was the only one I bet early was the Panthers over win total. And I think they're going to be significantly improved. Bryce Young can't be any worse than last year, but I expect a much better performance, especially since his supporting cast is better. Upgrade the offensive line at both guard spots. Upgrade the wide receiver position by bringing in Deontay Johnson, drafting Xavier Legette from South Carolina, who I actually really like. Defensively, a little bit of a talent drain, but I trust Evero, their defensive coordinator. Fangio tree more cover 3 heavy, but just always well schooled, well schemed. We'll see if they can generate a pressure. I saw that Chason got released today. They got to find another edge guy opposite of Clowney. It's a major question mark. And that's really what I'm looking for in this game, because I do think that they'll be able to generate some pressure only because the Saints offensive line is just a mess. And I think that's the one unit that is significantly weaker on both teams from last year. Right now, rookie left tackle, kicking your left tackle and Trevor Penning over to right tackle. He looks like he's just not built for the NFL in certain aspects. When it comes to blocking as a tackle, Lucas Patrick at guard, I'm not sure about that. So yeah, you lost Ramczyk, you lost Hurst, you lost a number of guys, and you didn't upgrade. And you're severely worse there. And we know Derek Carr, under pressure, his numbers fall off of a cliff. I will mention that these two teams who have gone under 7 straight times, and these teams have, and in those meetings, they've averaged 32 points per game. But I do think both offenses will be more modern and professional looking. They ran 2 of the lowest rates of both pre-snap motion and play action last year. Coordinator changes, I think you're going to see more of both, which will be helpful to both quarterbacks, especially Bryce Young. I think you're going to see him get outside the pocket more, get him moving, kind of to compensate for his lack of height in the pocket. And I think they're going to have some creative ways that they use him that the Saints might not be prepared for. Saints dealing with a few more injuries. And just to throw some trends in here, I'd like to use trends when they're actually applicable to what I'm looking for. And in this case, I think the Panthers were a little bit undervalued coming into the year. Road underdogs in week 1 that did not make the playoffs last year. So a lot of times it's like, hey, the market doesn't think they're any good. 90, 59, and 5 against the spread. Matches there. Titans, Panthers, Commanders, Broncos, Jaguars, Raiders, Patriots, Cardinals, and Jets. You don't want to play all of them blindly, but kind of just fits for what I'm looking for. And divisional dogs, man, week 1 divisional dogs, 60% past 20 years, 70% past 10 years. And one of our favorite trends that we always mention, Derek Carr and Dennis Allen as favorites have not had much success. Dennis Allen, 8-16 against the spread as a favorite. Derek Carr as a favorite of more than a field goal, right around 30% against the spread, sample size close to 30 games. So I like the Panthers to keep this close. Hopefully, they'll have their first fourth quarter lead in more than 2 years. Give me Carolina +4.
Yeah, I love everything about this pick. This would have been my first if you didn't take it. So congrats. That's what you get. That's what I get for losing the contest last year. I didn't get first pick. Didn't get to pick the Panthers.
You say that now, but it's the Panthers. You might be the lucky one not having the Panthers when we come back here next week.
I am known as the Panther Whisperer, and I approve of this pick. So, I also bet the Panthers win total in like April or May. I bet the Panthers to win this division. I just think Canales coming over from Tampa as the head coach, it's going to be his offense. I think it's going to be night and day schematically. But I also, you mentioned getting him outside the pocket. They also spent over $100 million on the interior line. Robert Hunt from Miami, who's a top 6 guard, graded by Pro Football Focus. You got Lewis as well. So it's the personnel is improved. The scheme is improved. And the Saints come into the year with just a terrible offensive line. And, that's something that you mentioned week one, kind of looking for trends and convictions and things like that because we don't have as many data points. Offensive line and pressure tends to be something that is just overlooked by the market all year long. So I do want to kind of get ahead of this in week one with the fade in the Saints. And the fact that it's Derek Carr and Dennis Allen is a bonus because we might only have so many more spots to bet against Dennis Allen. He is the odds-on favorite to be the first coach fired. We may have only so many more spots to bet against Derek Carr because Spencer Rattler, I think at some point, if Carr struggles, the crowd's going to be chanting his name. I'm already starting to hear buzz from Saints fans who, by the way, The Athletic did a survey and the Saints are the least optimistic fan base. So usually you're kind of like, hey, Saints fans, I know your team is kind of mediocre, but y'all suck. You just got to blow it up. But they already know that. So they're going to be pining for Rattler if Carr struggles at all and checks down a million times to Alvin Kamara and then overthrows Olave 8 times in a row on the sideline once they get behind. So, yeah, my bold call, Panthers lead wire to wire, including the entire fourth quarter. All right, for my first pick and the second overall, the week one Sunday 6-pack, I'm going with the Tennessee Titans +4 at the Chicago Bears. And the Chicago Bears, a lot of hype this year, should be very improved. But I think people are sleeping on the fact that the Tennessee Titans are also going to be improved. And that's something that, maybe a lot of people wouldn't agree with, or, it just doesn't kind of jump off the page because you lose Mike Vrabel, who I don't necessarily agree with that firing. But I think you brought in a good coach in Ryan Callahan, who comes over. He was the offensive coordinator with the Bengals. You upgraded the skill positions with Tony Pollard, with Calvin Ridley, with Tyler Boyd, and you upgraded 2 trouble spots on the offensive line, which was always your weakness with Lloyd Cushenberry, who was a top 10 graded center. And then you have your draft pick, who you got at number 7, who should slot in at left tackle, Latham. So if there's a lot of improvement on the offense. Defensively, the secondary was a big issue, and that could take some time. But you did bring over a premier corner in L'Jarius Sneed. Awuzie should at least be able to give you league average play. I think he's a little on the older side now, so I'm not expecting much. But he's been a top corner in this league before. And then you got Hooker at one spot in the safety, but you brought over Quandre Diggs, who that could go either way, but another guy who's been a quality player in this league. You traded for Ernest Jones. That kind of went under the radar at linebacker, very good linebacker. So the defense, lost some pieces, but the defense should still be solid. It could even be very good. And you patched up your a bunch of spots on offense. So you're giving Levis a chance to succeed. And I think he can be a pretty solid quarterback as long as he gets some time, and he's got good skill guys, which he has. So like everything about what the Titans did in the offseason, except the Vrabel firing. And, with the Bears, I just think the hype has kind of gotten out of hand. They're, starting a rookie quarterback in game number 1, and they're, already 4-point favorites against a team that's kind of in a similar boat to them, team quality wise. So I like Caleb Williams, like what they did around him, but still have some questions about the offensive line. Still going to take a little bit of time. And just historically, number 1 picks at quarterback have really struggled in their first games. Shouts to our guy, Evan Abrams. He went back and looked 27 number 1 picks since the merger in 1970. In their first start, 4-22-1 straight up, 7-20 against the spread. That's 27%. And, some other trends that kind of support the Titans, and we'll probably keep repeating these because they apply to quite a few teams. But week 1 underdogs that won between 4 to 6 games the prior season, 71 and 35, 67% against the spread over the past 20 years. And since they went to a a 17-game season, 11-3, 79% against the spread over the last 3 seasons. So a lot of trends supporting the Titans. And I just don't think there's as big a disparity between these two teams as the market does. So I'll take the Titans as 4-point dogs on the road. Anything higher than a field goal.
Yeah, I like this as well. And so Hopkins, are you projecting Hopkins to be fully healthy? We're recording this before.
When is Hopkins ever fully healthy? No, but he has a chance to play. Even if he doesn't, you still have Ridley. And I think the thing with Ridley is that you're going to be able to use him in a better manner. Like, cause last year they had Ridley in Jacksonville playing the X for some reason. I don't know why. So in Tennessee, you still have Treylon Burks, who you can kind of, a guy who has some talent and just, couldn't stay healthy and had a kind of rough start to his career. But I actually think Burks is going to have a pretty good rebound season, Hopkins healthy or not. So you do have some options, even if he doesn't play. And that just kind of speaks to the way they kind of built up the roster. So there's a lot to like about Tennessee. But yeah, Hopkins would just be gravy. And I think if Hopkins is definitely ruled in, you might even see this line get down to 3.5. But either way, anything over a field goal, give me Tennessee.
Yeah, I do like this. Denard Wilson comes over as defensive coordinator for the Titans. I think that they upgraded their defense. I mentioned the corner spot, brought in some veteran safeties. Ernest Jones, I think that was a good get because outside of Landry, that was a position of weakness. You draft Sweat to go along with Simmons on the defensive line. And Denard Wilson, was with the Ravens last year, but this is a guy that was, in his own words, he said he's groomed by Greg Williams and Todd Bowles. It's not going to be, he doesn't want to run, a mirror of what McDonald and the Ravens run. This is going to be more man-heavy on the outside, aggressive. Expect blitzes. And that interior, that Bears offensive line is a question mark. That Titans defensive line, the blitzing could cause Caleb Williams into a mistake or two in his first career start. But for my second pick and the third overall of the Week 1 Sunday six-pack, I'm fading another rookie quarterback in Mr. Bo Nix. Unfortunately for me, this week it's not Bo Nix season. I'm going with the Seattle Seahawks -6 at home. Another one of my conviction bets. I think the Seattle team, bit undervalued coming into the year. My other over win total that I bet besides the Panthers was the Seahawks. And this is a bet on Mike McDonald. His game plans on a weekly basis were spectacular. All of this time to prepare, all off season, home opener. I think that defense is going to be well prepared, well schooled, and confuse Bo Nix into a critical mistake or two. You mentioned first overall picks struggling in Week 1. Historically, all rookie quarterbacks have been about 500 against the spread. Where you really see a drop-off is when they have to go on the road for their first start. And I think they've averaged 18 points per game. The last rookie first-round quarterback to win on the road in Week 1 was Sam Darnold back in 2018. So I think hostile environment here against an improved, well-schooled defense. I think Bo Nix is going to struggle. And I'm not in love with this Broncos roster overall. The defense doesn't wow me. So I think that Geno Smith will have enough success with that rushing attack and his receivers. I think Connor Williams has a chance to play at center, worth monitoring. Because that's the one thing I'm worried about is the Seahawks offensive line. But the Broncos are not a team that I'm overly concerned about going up against when you do have some offensive line questions. So I think the Seahawks jump out here, force Nix into mistakes, and win by a touchdown plus. Give me Seattle at home.
Yeah, I'm actually higher than the market on both of these teams. So I'm not going to be betting this game, or at least I'm not going to be betting a side on this game. I kind of get it with Seattle, first game for Nix. Don't love betting against Sean Payton as a dog, but I think Geno Smith is kind of being underrated and slept on it was always going to be an adjustment period with Canales leaving and whatnot. And they had some bad luck last year. So if you're going to bet on Seattle and bet against Peyton, I think the time is now. Just because I think the Broncos are only going to get better. I actually like them to go over their win total as well. But I do think Seattle's being slept on. Your boy Ryan Grubb, I think, should help out that offense, help out Gito. And they got the skill guys. Their question marks are really on the offensive line as well. And Denver is just, I don't really know what I'm getting, So, I'm bullish about them. But a lot of that is just based on, I think the market was kind of rating them at their floor. And they might be rating them at their floor here, +6 against a mediocre Seattle team. But just not enough for me either way, because I am kind of bullish on both sides.
Yeah, one final note is the schematically what the Broncos run and do and their MO doesn't really worry me about some of the things that give Geno fits. But where are you going for your second pick?
So for my second pick, good segue, because we just talked about a rookie quarterback struggling on the road, but I'm betting on a rookie quarterback on the road with Washington +3.5 at Tampa Bay. Jayden Daniels, of course, in his first start. And I get it. Rookie quarterbacks do tend to struggle on the road, but this is just too many points for me with a mediocre to below average Tampa Bay team that lost Dave Canales. So the same reason we're bullish on Carolina, or one of the reasons we're bullish on Carolina, is Canales going over there. And I think there's going to be an adjustment period with Baker Mayfield because they are installing a new offense here. There's going to be more motion and things like that, but there's going to be a learning curve for this offense. Godwin's making the switch back, to the slot. There's a lot of changes even compared to last year when the Bucs, outperformed expectations. And this Washington team comes in, now you're getting more than a field goal. Make sure you shop around for the best number, but the 3.5s are out there. And I just don't think this Washington team is significantly worse in any way than Tampa Bay. Baker Mayfield, I think a lot of it was Canales. And before he came along, Baker Mayfield was thought of as one of the worst quarterbacks in the league. He was bouncing around between the Panthers. He lost the starting job. Then he went to the Rams and had a little bit of a resurgence. So I think it's not going to necessarily be what you saw last year with Mayfield this year going forward.
Yeah, you mentioned the Seahawks were unlucky in Geno Smith last year. The Bucs were lucky. So you could see positive regression for the Seahawks offense, negative for the Bucs, and in a few aspects.
And you have Cohn, who, he does have some familiarity with Mayfield from their time in LA, but that year, that was the Rams' worst offensive year ever. The 1 year Cohn was actually coordinator. Now I know it's generally the McVay show, but it doesn't exactly inspire a ton of confidence, especially in week one. And I just think this Washington team is going to be there's just a big culture change here. Dan Quinn, he's the guy that we kind of targeted when he was in Atlanta, but even he, I think, has changed. He'll probably have this defense that still leaves some things to be desired personnel wise, but he'll probably have this defense playing a lot better than a guy like Del Rio did a year ago. So, some of these perceived weaknesses, for this Washington defense, could be a little better than expected. I'm looking at you, secondary. Tampa Bay's one of their biggest weaknesses is the interior line. You got a rookie at center.
Washington take advantage of that.
Yeah, the guards, and you got Allen and Payne in the middle with just the two guys they didn't trade away. And, by the way, Bobby Wagner lurking behind those guys. So, and what does Baker Mayfield struggle with? Interior pressure. So, this is a good matchup for Washington. I think, with Tampa Bay's defense, it's hit or miss. Todd Bowles should have them playing all right, but with Jayden Daniels, that's kind of what you want, because Tampa Bay, they have good safeties on the back end, but Washington, they're not really gonna, they have Terry McLaurin and they don't know what they're doing at receiver. So you just need a guy like Jayden Daniels to run around, create some stuff off schedule, and I think that's how Washington stays in it. But I think the defense for Washington is a little underrated, and the offense for Tampa Bay is a little overrated. And these are already just two kind of 5 to 7, 8-ish wins if you're being generous, quality teams. I think, Tampa Bay, you mentioned, got lucky last year, and then they faced the Eagles in the playoffs, who were just on the worst downturn ever, so they end up winning a playoff game. So I think the perception of Tampa is a little skewed, but these are just 2 below average teams, and every year you see a bunch of these teams in that glut. And week 1, that's why week 1 dogs really, I think, kill it, is because there's all these perceptions from the prior year are just carrying over, and you don't realize that they're just all this is all the same team. And when that happens, underdogs are going to win quite a few of these games. So even though, yes, you have the rookie quarterback trend working against you, you do have a lot of trends benefiting Washington. Week 1 dogs, mentioned it, that won between 4 and 6 games the prior season, 71-35, 67%. Todd Bowles is a favorite of a field goal or more, 7-14, just 33% against the spread in his career. Baker Mayfield as a favorite of any number, 14-26, 35% against the spread in his career. Week 1 road underdogs, you already mentioned, Stuck, that didn't make the prior postseason, are 50-30, 63% since 2012. So there's just a boatload of trends to support Washington. And they got the secret weapon, just a dual threat quarterback. His name is Colson Yankoff, and he plays tight end and special teams. So look out for him.
Yeah, it's I think it's Commanders or nothing here, but I'm not as high on others on Daniels. Told you I think he's Justin Fields. But
you don't like Cliff. You don't like Cliff either.
And Cliff.
Betting on Quinn and Cliff. Oh my God.
Yeah. Oh my God. But I actually think this is it's amazingly, it's the Commanders' 8th different starting quarterback in week 1 over the past 8 seasons. I think that this could be a sneaky over. I think Bowles is going to blitz, try to bring the house. The Washington offensive line is definitely shaky. That's where Daniels' legs can really, have an impact here, extending plays, extending drives on third downs, buying time, and then hitting some explosive plays against a vulnerable group of corners that Tampa has. And on the other side, the Washington secondary, major questions. And, Tampa still has very talented wide receivers. So I think in this game, there's the potential for, and that Quinn is going to have an aggressive defense. And I think there's a potential for a lot of explosive plays in this game, which is what you want in today's NFL when you're betting an over, because that's where most overs go to die, is when you just have these methodical drives. And then I wouldn't be surprised if there's some turnover regression for Mayfield this year if Daniels makes a mistake or two. So you could have, defensive score, shorter fields. But I think there's going to be some potential for a lot of explosive plays in this game. So sneaky over would lean Washington, especially at 3.5. I think this line should probably be a field goal. But for my third pick and the 5th overall of the week 1 Sunday 6-pack, I'm going with the Minnesota Vikings -1.5. Shop around, see if you can get a 1 or cheap money line. For this contest, doesn't matter. Pushes or losses. Pushes aren't wins, so we're always on based on a half point. But I like the Vikings here. So I'm betting on Geno, Bryce Young, and now Sam Darnold.
On the road, weighing points.
Yep, feels good to be back. This handicap to me is, again, I'm higher than the Vikings in the market coming into the year. And there's a number of things that I just really like about this Vikings staff that I think are going to come in handy here. Number 1, Brian Flores. He is going to have some, exotic blitzes and coverages cooked up for week 1. He's going to bring a lot of unique blitzes, a lot of pressure against Daniel Jones, who just completely falls apart when that occurs against the blitz or under any pressure. The Giants' offensive line, dealing with injuries, still not that great. Shifting guys all around, no continuity, even a new offensive line coach. Flores is going to take advantage of that. Yes, you have Malik Neighbors, but I'll take I look at both these quarterbacks, it's a wash. And I think that there's even maybe some more upside just with Sam Darnold. He got to work with Shanahan. Apparently, his footwork is better. Now he's getting to work with O'Connell. Look what O'Connell did with his stable quarterbacks he had to work with last year after Cousins went down. Darnold's better than them. And Addison's trending up. Looks like he's going to play. Naylor as well. You have Jordan Jefferson. Who's covering them in the secondary? What did I say?
Jordan. I think
Jordan
you mixed up Justin Jefferson and Dramar Jefferson on the Lions and made them into one person.
Jordan Addison. No, Jordan Addison.
Okay, yeah, I'm bugging too. Yeah, next those.
So
who's
covering them?
Receiver? Nobody.
The Giants secondary is horrendous across the board. You or I could go out there and throw it to these receivers. On the other, look, the Giants' strength on their defense is their pass rush, but the Vikings' strength outside of their receivers, and look, you also have Aaron Jones, I think was a big get, is their tackles. They have one of the better tackle duos in the league. Now, where this could all fall apart, which worries me a little bit about laying points on the road with Sam Darnold, which is very scary, is if Lawrence just causes havoc on Bradbury and that interior offensive line. That's exactly what happened in the Giants-Vikings playoff game. He got pushed back the entire game. That worries me a bit, but I think they can neutralize their edge rush with their tackles. No one's going to be able to cover. The Giants also have some injuries they're dealing with at linebacker. No one's going to be able to cover these receivers. On the other end, I think Flores is going to cook up some exotic looks, pressures, confuse Daniel Jones into sacks, mistakes. And while the Vikings secondary isn't great, they have some veterans. They're in better shape than the Giants are in that aspect. And the Vikings have a better overall receiver room, even though I know the Giants added Malik Neighbors. So, yeah, I like the Vikings to get this done on the road. O'Connell will have them prepared. Flores will have this defense ready to go. Daniel Jones, just not the answer. And I just compare these two rosters. Where do you feel more confident about the Giants compared to the Vikings? Like, name the positions. Not running back. It's not quarterback. It's not offensive line. It's not receiver. It's maybe defensive line. But then you're going up against a really good Vikings pair of tackles. It's not the secondary. Like the Vikings, I think, are just better across the board. Well coached. Will be well prepared here. Daniel Jones at home too. Not been great in his career against the number. So, yeah, I like the Vikings. I'm laying points with Sam Darnold on the road. What could go wrong?
I had this game circled because I was like, I have to be on the Vikings in this game. And then I looked at the number and I'm like, Jesus, we're all at 1.5. Like, so the market is definitely sharp here. And I was kind of looking forward to this segment because I essentially kind of needed to talk this through about, because I want to be on the Vikings, and I think
I'm playing money line for what it's worth.
Yeah, I'm about to say that. I'll probably just play the money line as well. But for me, first of all, I was just dismayed watching Hard Knocks and just the thought processes that they did try. I know there's a lot that they didn't, but there was just a lot of errors in the way Joe Schoen is thinking about things. I just think, he came from Buffalo and he learned under Bean, and that was all great. But it's a lot easier when you have Josh Allen to build a team. And I just think most of the decisions he's made haven't worked out. And now, there's the fame. He's like, oh, we're not going to pay Daniel Jones all this money to hand off to $12 million running back or whatever it was. First of all, he still gave Devin Singletary top 15 money in terms of guarantees and contract, but whatever. The problem is all Giants fans know the reason we love Daboll is because he came over here and essentially said, Daniel Jones, just chill, check it down. If it's not there, run it. Now, I see in the offseason they're imploring Daniel Jones to take more deep shots. That's when you get into trouble. Like, how do they not know this? They already paid the guy $50 million, and that was a mistake. But how do you not know that, like, Daniel Jones holding onto the ball is now he can lead the league in fumbles. I think he led the league in turnovers like first 2 years in the league, and then he's accurate, short, intermediate. He's not bad, but deep he's not terribly accurate. So. Like, now you're just introducing all these Daniel Jones mistakes back into the equation, and that's something you didn't even really have, for most of this Daboll tenure. So, like, I don't love that. And on top of that, you mentioned it, the offensive line's still not good. He still takes too many sacks, and it's his first regular season game coming off a serious knee injury. So, will the running be there to bail him out? I don't know. Will they be comfortable calling as many designed runs? I don't know.
And there's no Barkley to pay attention to anymore.
There's no Barkley. So now you're playing Daniel Jones And like, this is all out there in the open. It's like, yeah, we want Daniel Jones to deep. We're going to pass more. So it's like, now you're just sitting on Daniel Jones. Like, this is just not what I want. So yeah, it's Vikings or nothing, even though this seems like a spot where we would usually be on the dog, short home dog week 1. Don't really know anything about these teams, but I think, like you said, I think the Vikings have an edge in almost every unit, every aspect. And I just don't think this is a great matchup for Daniel Jones. I don't think Flores is a great matchup for Daniel Jones. And by the way, Flores can be a lot more multiple this year because they actually, on paper, maybe the Vikings don't wow you with some of their moves, but Stephon Gilmore, Griffin.
You have guys that aren't out of position that you can rely on. Right.
And they can, and Flores, the important thing is Flores is going to feel comfortable being even more multiple than he was last year, where, I think he played, he dropped 3 at the highest rate and also played cover 0 at the highest rate. I think that was a stat
dropped
you had,
8,
right?
Yeah, dropped 8, cover 3.
Yeah.
Also cover 2, yeah.
Yeah, so now you're going to be confusing Daniel Jones in addition to all these other things. Like, it just spells disaster for the Giants. And then on the other side, the Giants' weakest unit is the secondary because they put everything into the line. So this Vikings team good enough at the tackle spots. And the secondary, Deonte Banks, even if he does make the leap, you're not covering Justin Jefferson. But Deonte Banks was ranked outside the top 100 corners last year at PFF. He's your number 1. You're probably going to start a rookie at one of the safety spots. Pretty much everyone on your secondary is unsung. It's not like anyone, if you're not a Giants fan, you could just rattle off the names of the guys in their secondary. I mean, they just bring back Adoree Jackson like a week before their season, and now he might have to start. And by the way, he was graded as one of the worst. He was even worse than Banks last year. So
yeah, I said. By the way, I remember about our offseason, I said the Giants should do that. Why did they wait so long? Obviously,
yeah, because now he's not even been in camp and working with these other unsung guys in the secondary. I mean, he's worked with some of them before, but this could just set up as a disaster. Darnold is not great. That's why I was like, oh man, laying points on the road, Darnold. I don't know. It doesn't feel right, but it feels even. It doesn't feel any more right, like leaving not fading the Giants this week, because this is just a terrible matchup. And Minnesota's going to come out hungry because their schedule after this. Oh man, this might be the only win they get over the first half of the year if things don't play out well for them. So yeah, I like the Vikings.
Laying points on the road with Sam Darnold feels right to me because it's like taking an ugly dog. It's ugly. It hurts. It stings. It's not pretty. But where are you going for their final pick?
For my third and final pick, I'm going with the Jacksonville Jaguars plus 3.5 at the Miami Dolphins. This is just a play on the number for me. I make this closer to 2.5. The Dolphins and the Jaguars, they're similar teams. So it comes down to home field for the Dolphins, and it's not really, you're not traveling. If you're the Jaguars, both teams play in Florida. Dolphins don't have the Dolphins do have a good home field advantage when they play some of those teams like Buffalo and whatnot. And I guess they have the sideline thing with the shade on one side. So whatever, they should be the favorite. Fine. But I think the Jaguars are being undervalued in this spot. The Jaguars got really unlucky last year. Trevor Lawrence, I think, is a lot better than his numbers showed, especially last year. Because he's had, I think, the most drops over this first 3 years of any quarterback. Just a lot of unlucky things going down in the red zone for Jacksonville last year. But on paper, or not even just on paper, it's like, if you look at how these, both of these offenses, like Miami has the flashy guys, the Tyreeks and the Achans and whatnot, but Jacksonville, very solid skill position corps. ETN at running back. I really like Brian Thomas Jr. at wide receiver. Remember, their wide receivers were banged up last year. Christian Kirk. You have they brought in Gabe Davis, great run blocker. So he could be the number 5 option now. So it's not like in Buffalo where they were counting on him to be the number 2 or 3 guy. He's probably your number 5 because Brian Thomas has looked good. Kirk is outplayed expectations, and Engram's been a beast. ETN, you can use him. You can move him all around. And then the offensive line, a lot of injuries last year, should be better, was bad last year. Defensively, Jacksonville is, they always kind of leave you wanting on that side of the ball, but I think Jacksonville has enough pieces there. You're not going to always completely stop Miami, but Darby, it's early in the year, so as long as he's healthy, I think he might be an upgrade. You still got Campbell on the other side. Johnson's played well at times in the slot. I like the linebackers, Lloyd and Aluakun. You're still looking for another edge rusher, but you added Armstead on the interior. You still got Hines Allen. So there's pieces there. You added Savage on the secondary. So I think Jacksonville overall just going to be a lot better than they were, or better than they were last year. And this was already, a 9-8 team last year. And Miami's kind of a similar type of team. And when they played teams like this, the narrative is Miami can't be great competition. But when they play kind of similar teams, a lot of times, even if Miami wins, it's like 1 point, 2 points. We saw that last year, week 1. They play the Chargers. They win by 2 points. They play the Cowboys late in the year. They win by 2 points. So Miami laying 3.5 at home, it's just too much. 3, I could understand it a little bit more. I would still be on the Jaguars if I had to pick a side, but 3.5, you're just begging me to take Jacksonville, and I will oblige. Wouldn't be surprised if the Jags win this game outright. It's just a matter of, is Tyreek Hill going to just go off for like 4 explosives, or can you limit him to like 2 explosives? That might decide it, but I think these teams are too evenly matched for Miami to be laying 3.5 in an interstate game.
Yeah, I would lean that way. It's good live betting game in my opinion. Like, it's hard to see like who's getting stops in this game. That the Dolphins aren't going to have the Dolphins have a long list of injuries that I'm monitoring.
oh my God, their defense, man.
Like even down to like Ramsey. So I'm monitoring that, which works in the favor of your side with the hook. And but can the Jags, the Dolphins offensive line has questions, but 2 is just going to be getting the ball out quick. Can the Jags secondary actually cover these receivers in space? I have my concerns. It's a new defensive scheme as well. Dennis Allen, true, you're going to see more man, and I don't know if they have the dudes. I mean, Darby's not getting any younger. But on the other side, the Dolphins, without Phillips, without Chubb, I think they're going to get pressured. That's what you need to do to Lawrence, is you have to get pressure and his numbers fall off a cliff. I'm not sure the Dolphins can get pressure here. So it's hard for me to see either defense really having sustained success. I don't really like betting overs week 1. But if I had to, I would look at the over. Instead, I much prefer the Jags side but team goes up, bet the team that's behind. I think it's a good live betting game, betting on the chaser, because I think that both offenses will have a lot of success. I don't think the defenses have a lot to offer in form of resistance. So I like it there. So what's the recap?
So you have the Carolina Panthers +4, the Seattle Seahawks -6, and the Vikings -1.5. I have the Titans +4, the Washington Redskin Commander football team +3.5, and the Jacksonville Jaguars +3.5. So you have Bryce Young, Geno Smith, Sam Darnold. I have Will Levis, Jayden Daniels in his first start on the road, and Trevor Lawrence. So we have one-ish respectable quarterbacks, at least coming into the year. I like Daniels more than you. Yeah, exactly the way we like it. That's our week 1 Sunday Sick Pack. And for this week's Coach's Pep Talk, we're going to go to actor Kevin Dunn in the mockumentary Any Given Saturday Afternoon. And we got to dedicate this one to the Carolina Panthers.
We are fighting a global fight for a share of people's TVs. We need to make this sport more exciting. You are not losers. You are not dorks. You don't suck. What you do is not stupid and worthless. And I don't give a shit who tells you that. I don't care if it's your kids, your wives, your parents. You go up and you tell somebody you're an athlete, that asshole shouldn't be laughing. It's going to be the greatest underdog story in the modern sports era. Now that is a hell of a story.
So best of luck to the Panthers. Even though you got them in the contest stuck, I'll be on them as well, and very bullish on them season long as well. So we need the Panthers to get off on the right foot. You are not losers. All right, let's get into our favorite over-under of the week. All right, Stuck. You went first in 6-pack, so the way we do it, we switch it up for the total. So I'll go first here. I'm going Steelers, Falcons under 42.5, and I might get to 43, so I'm not in a rush to bet it. 42 is not really a key number, so it could jump around 41.5, 42, 42.5. I don't really care, but on the off chance it gets to 43, that would be nice. But the reason I like this under is because something you kind of alluded to, Stuck. You're going to see some rust with these quarterbacks who didn't play in the preseason. And Kirk Cousins not only didn't play in the preseason, but he's coming off an Achilles injury for which we just don't have a large sample size of guys even coming off this. I usually have to go back to Dan Marino to even find a quarterback coming off a series when Rodgers this year, but we haven't seen anything from him yet either. And he's in a new offense, new weapons. I also think that this matchup plays into Pittsburgh's hands defensively because Atlanta in this new scheme, which I think ultimately will benefit them relative to, Arthur Smith, who is in Pittsburgh right now. But I think it's easy to prepare for. So because you're running 95% 11 personnel. So, Pittsburgh, the defense is the strength of this team. They've had all offseason. Arthur Smith is in the building, so he's familiar with a bunch of players on this roster. I think that's an advantage Pittsburgh an advantage defense, because I don't think Pittsburgh's offense is going to do much either way. Russell Wilson is cooked. Maybe he gets benched mid-game, but he's cooked. They didn't trade for Ayuk. The Falcons, the defense should be trending up. I do think it'll be better than last year, but could take some time with Simmons. Simmons is new, but you did add Judon, so you at least have some semblance of a pass rush. You still got Grady Jarrett and Anyamata. Terrell's a good corner, so you have some good pieces on Atlanta. Against Pittsburgh, I think this matchup, even indoors, not scary at all. Pittsburgh offensive line has been pretty bad all preseason. Guys are banged up for them. And in Pittsburgh, I talked about it. It just plays into their hands defensively because it's easier to prepare for. 1-1 personnel. That means what do you do? You're gonna chip Kyle Pitts on Watt, or what are you doing there? It's harder to give help, to Watt, to your tackles on Watt, and you got a tall corner in Porter, 6'2", a quality corner who can hang with Drake London. You got, Minkah Fitzpatrick. You got Patrick Queen, so you can handle Kyle Pitts. And you have that defensive line, which, Atlanta's offensive line, I would consider a strength overall, but you have Hayward, you have Watt on that defensive line. So I just think Pittsburgh's defense matches up well. I think Atlanta will be rusty. I think Atlanta's defense, at least personnel-wise, is improved, and this Pittsburgh offense doesn't scare me at all. And for all we know, Russell Wilson could be even worse than Kenny Pickett, Mason Rudolph, Mitch Bortles, last year. And this is Arthur Smith. So it says underwritten all over it for me.
Yeah, I do think, in a odd way, both offenses are going to be improved schematically because the Falcons are improved by upgrading a coordinator by moving on from Arthur Smith.
Yeah.
But the Steelers are also upgrading by getting Arthur Smith because that's how bad Matt Canada was. It wouldn't be our podcast if we didn't mention Mike Tomlin as an underdog. I have to mention that he's 59, 35, and 4 against the spread as a dog, 63%. Most profitable coach in underdog over the past 20 years. Now our producer can insert a Tomlin clip. The standard is the standard.
Wait. Well, while we're on Tomlin trends, I didn't even mention Tomlin unders when he's on the road, 55-25 since 2014, a nice 69% hit rate. Tomlin road unders when they open 43 or higher in the first 3 months of the season. 42-13-1 since he became the head coach of the Steelers, 76% on a 56-game sample size. Sorry.
Yeah, it's the Steelers' way. Just grind out the game, then force a turnover in the fourth quarter, find a way to win. It's what they do every year. Their one possession record is insane under Tomlin. But I actually think this is a good matchup for the Falcons. The thing that gives me slight pause is I don't know what to expect from Cousins. I have the same pause with the Jets. I bet the Jets on Monday night. I know you'll have that game written up, but I'm kind of scared of my bet. I was trying to get ahead of. I was thinking that Williams and or Ayuk potentially might not play, but now it looks like the Jets without Reddick are going to be the team that could be down personnel wise.
Yeah, and you got Aaron. You're betting. That's exactly. I mean, I'm actually curious. I guess we're going on a tangent, so they might cut this. But like, you're betting Aaron Rodgers coming off an Achilles against the San Francisco D line. That's like his kryptonite. That's an interesting bet.
Yeah, well, I was trying to get ahead of some of the news, and obviously that didn't work out. But yeah, the Falcons. I actually think it's a good matchup for the Falcons because they have one really reliable corner. The Steelers have one reliable receiver, and the Falcons are going to be switching to a 3-4 under more of a three-man front under Raheem Morris, who I like from a schematic perspective. And then the Steelers' injury situation on offense, specifically up front, Jaylen Warren too. He's dealing with a hamstring issue. That backfield's just not, and Arthur Smith, you know what's going to run it. It's just not the same if you don't have that thunder and lightning combination. So if Warren can't go or is not fully healthy, that's a big hit. But the offensive line, I mean, you have injuries all over. I think they could be starting Dan Moore, who's terrible at left tackle, Spencer Anderson at left guard, potentially, a rookie center. That is, on the road, that is not ideal for week one with all of the injuries that they're dealing with because you have Sayamalu's out, Herbig's on IR, Faltano I don't think he's going to be ready week one. He just came back.
He was banged up too.
Yeah, so it is not a good situation in front of Russ. So I do think both offenses should be better constructed, but going with a Tomlin under as a dog, never a bad idea. But for my favorite total of the week, I'm going to go with the Cleveland Browns Dallas Cowboys under 41. That's the last place I'd play it to. This under has taken some money, but there's a lot of things I like about this under. Both teams in recent seasons, their strength has been their offensive line. Not the case now. And you're going up against defenses that have a lot of juice in the pass rushing department. Cowboys going to be starting a rookie left tackle going up against Myles Garrett. That's not great. They are worse off at the center position. So there's questions down this Dallas offensive line. The running back room got worse. And look, the offense was electric last year, but it's when they got ahead, and we talked about this, they're front runners, and when they were at home, and when they were playing bad defenses. And the Browns, they don't really have to worry about the running game. They can come after this offensive line with the aggression that they play with up front in that Jim Schwartz defense. And you just have to really worry about CeeDee Lamb from a receiver standpoint. So, and you have three really good man corners. So you can take two of them and take their other receivers out of the equation, put one of your other elite man corners on Lamb, and then shade a safety to him. And then you have your other safety coming up in the box, worrying about Ferguson, and you have to worry about, they can shut down this Cowboys offense, get pressure on Dak, and you have on the other side of the ball, Browns offensive line issues. Their running back room doesn't have as much juice as it usually does without Chubb. And you have Deshaun Watson, who hasn't played in how long? And when he has, it hasn't looked great. I don't expect this Browns offense to do much. And you're outdoors, and there could be some wind. I think this is a super low-scoring game. Give me the Browns, Cowboys under.
Yeah, this is just an ugly spot for the Cowboys, and their offense got worse in pretty much every way. And on top of that, I mean, Dak 2 years ago, he had all those interceptions, and then last year he was coming into the year like, I'm going to cut down these interceptions, which he did, but now he's working with less, and he's kind of agitated and probably trying to prove he's worth all the money that he's in line to get. So you might see some of the mistakes come back for Dak as well. So yeah, it should be a defensive battle here. So yeah, Steelers Falcons under for me. Browns, Cowboys under for you. Let's get into our favorite teaser of the week. And for those unfamiliar with teasers, it's just when you add a certain number of points to a parlay of 2 or more spread bets. Usually it's a 6-point teaser. So for example, a 8-point favorite becomes a 2-point favorite. A 2-point underdog becomes an 8-point underdog. Stuck. You have a lot of great content out there on teasers and teasing through the key numbers of the 3 and the 7. So everyone make sure to check those out. So talk to me about where you're going for week 1.
Yeah, I already mentioned the teaser earlier in the show. If you're listening to this before Thursday or Friday, Ravens, Packers, I like. And then the teaser that you suggested, I'm going to agree with. Teasing the Bengals down and the Cowboys up. You're going cross 3 and 7 in both. Both have lower totals. The Bengals, Jamar Chase, is he going to play? He was out of practice today. That's the big question.
It's iffy. Cincy. Like it's tempting me to just bet this line in because the Patriots are not ready for prime time. I mean, they literally are starting their backup quarterback just because they're not confident in their O line. So that's also an under candidate.
Yeah. Speaking of their O line, it is a mess. I'm just not a fan of laying. Touchdown plus favorites week 1.
Yeah, no, it's
14 and 27 against the spread since 2003. But you have Strange already on IR, their Patriots guard. You have Lowe and So dealing with injuries. If that's the case, you have a rookie Robinson at right guard, and Andrews and Owenu will be fine. But if Lowe is out, Okoronkwo probably starting at the other tackle spot, and then Leverett or Michael Jordan at the other guard spot, all with a new offensive line scheme. They're changing how they're blocking. That's bad news. Hunter Henry dealing with injury, no Bourne. Brissett starting. The good news is, and if you want to bet an under there, because the Patriots, they're probably going to go much slower this year. They're going to be just super run heavy and try to rely on their defense. Brissett, reason why he's such a good backup, top 5 among all qualified quarterbacks in NFL history in interception rate. Doesn't make mistakes. That's why he's a good backup. But yeah, I think the Bengals still should get it done at home. Chase is the big question mark. It looks like Trent Brown is going to start at right tackle. Bengals finally have depth there. I don't think Mims is ready to go just yet. He's dealing with an injury. Dax Hill looks like won the cornerback 2 job. I think that's the most important job on this entire team for the Bengals to reach where they want to go. Looks like he's going to win it over DJ Turner. So that's something I'm going to be watching for. Maybe it's not the best game to really judge his performance against the Patriots passing attack. And the Bengals, they do have questions with the defensive line now without Reeder. Their run defense is really bad without him. And that cornerback 2 spot is a question mark. The Patriots can't really take advantage of either. So the Bengals should get it done. And then the Browns, low scoring game. Browns Cowboys, low scoring game. With a low projected total, teasing that up to over 8. So I like that look that you suggested.
Yeah, and for the Bengals run defense, at least what I'm hearing now, this doesn't necessarily have to play out on the field, but they felt like it had a lot to do with communication on the back end.
Safeties.
So,
the safeties
Von Bell coming back,
Geno
they're
Stone.
Right. That they're saying, at least internally, that's made a big difference in just getting them in better looks and fits to stop the run. So, I mean, Reeder's a big
I agree with that.
Yeah.
I agree with that assessment.
We'll see
it's one of
how
the reasons why I bet the Bengals to win the division.
Yeah, I love the Bengals this year. I think they're the team to bet over the Ravens in that division as well. And then on Cleveland, Dallas, we already talked about why Dallas could struggle, but Cleveland's another one of these teams. They didn't play their quarterback, Deshaun Watson. Until I see Deshaun Watson on the field, I mean, I would be surprised if Deshaun Watson's like a surprise scratch for week 1 or something. I never feel like confident with Deshaun Watson because every time he throws the ball for like 2 days in a row, he's hurt or he's like, I don't know what's going on with him. So,
I agree. It's very bizarre. And by the way, I'm not fully convinced that Conklin, who's rumored he's going to be starting at left tackle, Wills, I'm not convinced both of them or either of them play or will be close to 100%. The tackle situation, very concerning for the Browns heading into week 1. But yeah, Watson, it's not pretty.
And your big upgrade in the offseason was Jerry Jeudy. I mean, ask Steve Smith Sr. about that one. All right, let's go to our Underdog Moneyline Parlay. All right, in this section, we each choose an underdog. We give you the parlay odds if you want to do that. Obviously, you could just bet them individually. But I think we're both going with one of each other's picks, if I'm not mistaken. So you can start us off.
Yeah, I'm going to the Commanders. We talked about it earlier in the six-pack segment, so nothing much more to add. Where are you going?
Panthers. Same deal here. We talked about it already. So if you parlay the Commanders plus 140, the Panthers plus 180, your parlay odds would be plus 572. So some nice underdogs. I think week 1's a good spot for these in general. And specifically regarding the Panthers, week 1 divisional dogs are actually above 500 outright since 2010. So go over a decade now. The week 1 divisional dogs 40, 38, and 2 on the money line, 51% with a 32% ROI. So like that spot for Carolina. All right, let's end it with our Survivor Pool pick of the week. Where are you going, Stuck?
I'm in the Circa Survivor. So there's 20 weeks, and you got to like Christmas and Thanksgiving, which are going to be a bear. Yeah, so I'm going to be a little riskier if you're in a bigger pool. And I'm going to save the Bengals. They have an easy schedule. I have some spots I want to use them when I mapped it all out later in the year. So I'm going to go with the Seattle Seahawks at home against the Denver Broncos and Bo Nix in his first career start on the road. I'm going to save the Bengals, who, by the way, are the only favorite of over a touchdown this week. That is the fewest in week 1 in the NFL since, I believe, 2011, where we didn't have any. So a lot of close spreads this week. Bengals are the obvious choice, but I'm in some bigger pools, so I'm going to be a little riskier. Save them, and then I'm going to go with the Seahawks.
Yeah, it makes sense. I hate that the Bengals are really the only spot, the only safe, quote unquote, safe spot in week 1 because they do have such an easy schedule. But the way I play week 1, even if I am in a larger pool, I just want to advance week 1 because I'm really going off nothing here. And it's actually funny. I believe, because we do this every year, and like if one of us gets eliminated, the other one just gives the picks for the rest of the year. And I think it was week 1. I want to say 2 years ago when they had this game as the opener, Seattle, Denver. And I think you picked against Seattle, and then they got upset. So like now you're getting your retribution.
Oh, get this out. Don't mention that. You're going with the Bengals.
Oh man, good times. All right, now it's time for best of the rest, which are the games that we did not hit on in any other segment. Let's start it off with the Texans at the Indianapolis Colts. Texans favored by 3 at most books on the road. It's just some 2.5s out there. The total 49. I actually like the Texans in this spot, especially if you can get inside of 3, or I might just play the money line. But my thing with the Texans is, yes, they're on the road in a divisional spot, which is usually the spot to back the dog. But I think that this Texan offense, specifically having 3 what I consider elite wide receivers, is just the worst possible matchup for the Colts, because the Colts' main issue, main question mark, main weakness is the secondary, and specifically at cornerback, where you have Moore is pretty solid, but he's a slot, and you're going to have Brents and
Jones and Cross.
Jones, just a bunch of question marks. So, I mean, even if those guys improve, they would still get toasted by Stephon Diggs, Tank Dell, Nico Collins. But this matchup plays right into the Texans' hands. So I know it's, the Texans tend to play these close games. I think they only won by 4, and that was on that drop pass in that matchup in Week 18 last season. But the Texans have a clear, and remember, they didn't have Diggs or Dell for that game. but the Texans have a clear edge in the spot that you just don't want to face if you're a Colts fan, which is wide receiver against that secondary. So, Ballard, he's like, hey, he knows it, but he's not worried about his job security. And so he trots out this cornerback group that he's betting a lot on. I don't see it, especially in week one, especially against this past game. So I like the Texans. Any thoughts there?
Would lean Texans, but not running to bet. I mean, divisional home dogs, they have been absolutely money in week one, 17-4 against the spread since 2012. But I think that's ultimately the difference is just there's just a huge mismatch when it comes to the passing attack for the Texans against the secondary for the Colts, which is their glaring weakness. Can the Colts just generate enough pressure on Stroud? I think they had 5 or 6 sacks in one meeting last year, but that's when Tunsil was out and they were playing with like 4 backup offensive linemen. They're going to need to get pressure with their front. Otherwise, it's going to be a long day. Now, sometimes the Texans come out and they run it too often, right? Like, and they just are inefficient early in the game. Then they unleash Stroud. So I might, look for the Texans live if they get behind, because there's just no, once Stroud has to pass, that's just going to work right. Like, hey, you have to pass, you're from behind. And the Colts just have no recourse for stopping them. Looks like Will Anderson potentially trending up. Josh Downs, not sure if he's going to go. Means I think Mitchell probably gets more of the slot snaps.
AD,
But I don't really love overs in week one, especially in division games, but it would lean over here fast. Colts are going to go super fast tempo with Richardson, whose legs obviously will be an asset. And it's just hard for me to see the Texans getting slowed down the pass attack. Maybe I'll look for a live over too if the Texans come out and they're kind of messing around with running it too often, as they tend to do early in games last year under Slowick. But I think the Texans probably win because of that passing attack, but probably staying away pregame. But lean, my biggest lean would be over.
And they do internally, they do know that. So Slowick, he was aware, and over the second half of the year, now it was kind of obscured because they, Stroud was injured a couple games down the stretch, and then like all the receivers got hurt, but like after that Carolina game, it was kind of a wake up call to Slowick when they lost that game and they got too cute running the ball. So I think they traded for Stephon Diggs. Like, they're clearly planning to be more pass happy. And as far as the sacks, CJ Stroud had 2 games where he took a lot of sacks, the first 2 of his career. After that, pressure or not, he was fine, regardless of who was in and out of the lineup. So I'm not really worried about it either. So I'll probably be on the Texans, but maybe I will take the money line because, I mean, they always end up in these close games one way or another. And the Colts, this is, Anthony Richardson's healthy. And so that's still good news for the Colts. They'll be able to protect him. Their offensive line is really good. And Jonathan Taylor's healthy. So I'm not sleeping on the Colts offense either. I just think the Texans have a bigger mismatch. All right.
By the way, the most and the Colts, like the way that you can throw Stroud off is blitzing numbers kind of fall off a bit, but the Colts don't blitz. It was like the lowest rate, and they play a very static old school defense.
Don't start.
All right, but anyway,
Gus Bradley, motherfucker. Yeah.
The anomaly stat of the week is the Colts are. It's not predictive at all. It's great, but the Colts are 1-14-1 against the spread in week one over the past 16 seasons. Insane.
I mean, a lot of that is Frank Reich was their coach, so that ballooned that record. I mean, it's just, I guess they had other struggles, and then they probably play the Jags a lot in week one, and don't they always lose to them? Yeah, right. That's their.
Yeah, it's not predictive, but it's just crazy.
Yeah,
all right.
Yeah, the Colts. I mean, they could win this game. It's the NFL, but I'm convinced. My conviction is the Texans, so I'm going to roll with that side. Okay, Bills, Arizona. Bills are at home. The Cardinals are 6.5-point underdogs. The total's 48. I'm actually curious to your thoughts on this game because I make this line around 5. I think the market is a little low on the Cardinals. I think that Kyler Murray with a full offseason with a true number 1 receiver. Remember, his numbers just been a lot better with Hopkins.
Greg Dortch, you talking about?
Yeah, exactly. Greg Dortch, number 1. Nah. But, Marvin Harrison, top one of the top picks in the draft. Dortch, I mean, I believe he's gonna start at in the slot position. So he's a guy that can create. I like Wilson, so I really like the offense. I think the offensive line will be okay, but you have Murray regardless, and then defensively is where I still have the question marks, but I'm not as high on this Joe Brady transformation as some. I know an article just came out with Stephon Diggs essentially saying, throwing Brady under the bus and saying we started running too much in the second half. And that kind of coincided with your Bills' future, Super Bowl future. They started winning. But I don't know if that's the right mentality long-term for the Bills. And I just feel like sometimes those things, like, it's like, these offensive coordinators have these good stretches, and I'm pretty sure it was like a McDermott thing. Like, he's a defensive guy, and he's like, all right, let's run the ball. It's like, dude, you have Josh Allen and Stephon Diggs, and now you don't. So I think this Bills team might be a little overrated, but at the same time, the Bills did take some sharp money, which is why I want to hear your thoughts. Because I would love to get a 7 with Arizona, but I make this line about a point and a half off from the market already.
No, I'm close to market. This is the game I have the least amount of confidence or conviction on the entire week 1 slate. I don't know how the Bills are going to approach this. Well, number one, defensively, I think the Bills are going to take a step back. Similar to the Bengals last year with their safety situation. You lose your 2 mainstays. Looks like they're going to be starting Taylor Rapp, DeMar Hamlin. Both those guys better coming like downhill. Like, there could be some busted plays here. And by the way, Greg Dortch. Get a Greg Dortch go. I've been on Greg Dortch since his Wake Forest days in his first year. Now the fantasy community is all about him. Shout out my guy, Ian Harditz, but I see him always tweeting about him. But I was first. Just want to say that. Greg Dortch, happy to see you having the success. I always knew you would. But yeah, the Cardinals' offense should be better. And look, the Bills' defense, there's a lot of pressure on their corners and their defensive ends. Russo and Epineza, who I like, to just and their interior is good too with Jones leading the way there and Oliver. They got to get home because there's the middle of the defense is going to take a bit. You don't have Milano now. Dorian Williams probably going to get the first crack there. I've seen even Bills fans getting excited about like Joe Andreessen, like the local team with the Buffalo. Like it's bad. The safety situation is not great right now, and that doesn't enable McDermott to be as flexible. And, Milano's like the quarterback of that defense, did so much in so many different ways. So I think their defense could take a step back. The other side of the ball is where I don't know how the Bills are going to approach this, because one, are they just going to go super run heavy and just say we can bully Arizona, which they should be able to do? Or
those terrible signings on the interior for Arizona. That's like, I don't know. They paid too much money for those garbage.
Yeah, I like this. I love the scheme that they're running, and some of the stuff like their 9 spacing quarters, and they're really innovative under Gannon. But they just don't have talent on that side of the ball. But do the Bills go bully ball and just run it? And in that case, like, you probably want an under ticket, or do they try to come out here and get the passing game going? Again, you can do that against this Arizona team. You're relying on extremely young corners, and Murphy Bunting is not like, their secondary is very vulnerable because, like, you have the Bills. They're going to start Matt Collins at receiver. It looks like it's going to be the one on the outside.
Or the X. No, I think Coleman would be the X, and then
Matt Collins
would have
over
Samuel.
Him. No, Collins was over. Yes, he was on the depth chart today. So,
man, Coleman played every snap with the ones all preseason.
Why would they put Collins over Coleman on the depth chart?
Veteran. They don't like to shit on veterans on depth charts. I learned a long time ago not to trust those depth charts. But yeah, either way, I mean, Samuel's banged up too, so it might be a moot point.
Yeah, but I'm curious to see if like they are, because I feel like you want to figure out this passing attack and against the Cardinals secondary, because of your next 5 games, 4 on the road against the Dolphins, Ravens, Texans, and Jets. There's your AFC like upside chances. So, like, do they just not want to show anything because they have that stretch coming up? Do they want to work out the kinks with letting Allen air it out? So I just don't know. I don't know how and they've been really quiet on how they're going to approach this. I know some people close to the Bills team. So I don't know. I have it pretty close to correct market wise. For what it's worth, I will throw out there that this just goes back to a lot of things we were saying before with like teams that didn't make the playoffs that come into the new NFL season undervalued. Teams that won 6 or fewer games at the previous season, when they're road dogs in the first month of the season of less than a touchdown with a total of less than 50, 97-55 against the spread, 64%. This week it applies to the Titans, Cardinals, Commanders, and Panthers. But I don't have anything here. I just want to see how this plays out.
I mean, I just have this. I'm leaning more and more toward the Cardinals after we talk about this because number one, you just mentioned the schedule for the Bills. So this is a trap game in week 1. And remember, they lost a trap game, what was it, a couple years ago to the Steelers in week 1. Like, so the Bills do.
I think on a block punt, a classic Steelers win.
And then, but also, and this just goes back to what I was saying about Brady. It's like they had a lot of success switching up last year. So, respect. But the receiving core now, no Diggs and no Davis. That hurts in terms of like making the defensive prepare for you in Diggs in the passing game. But also Gabe Davis, great run blocker. So you're losing him. Like you said, you're trying out Mac Hollins, no chemistry with Josh Allen. Marcus Valdes-Scantling, no chemistry with Josh Allen. Coleman, rookie, so limited chemistry with Josh Allen. Samuel, no chemistry with Josh Allen. Josh Allen, prone to mistakes, so they probably run the ball, which means it probably stays close, and that's what they did anyway last year. And then the defense, the safeties are always the strong point, and they got weaker, so now you're relying more on your corners, which in McDermott's scheme is just, I think you'd rather have the safeties be on point because the Bills have survived without corners. So it's just, I don't know. I think the Bills just might have some struggles here. I wouldn't be surprised if the Cardinals, that was actually a team I was thinking about for Moneyline Dog. So yeah, I'm probably going to be on the Cardinals.
All right, we got to move on before we anger our producer who's a Bills fan too much.
Do you want to just skip the final game?
No, I meant you talking about
I'm kidding.
The Bills losing.
Yeah. All right. So we got 2 more games. Vegas at the Chargers. We don't do Monday night. We don't preview this on the pod. If you want to find content on that, one of us will be writing up the Monday night game every week, and it'll be discussed on other podcasts here on the channel. But we'll end it with the Sunday night game. But before that, Vegas at the Chargers, -3 are the Chargers at home. The total 40.5. I could still see this game going under. The Raiders only allowed 16 points. I mean, they played all these backup quarterbacks, but since Pierce took over and Chargers, Greg Roman coming over at OC, Harbaugh, the coach, I think the defense should be better. So, yeah, that's kind of my lean, but I'm not really too interested in this one. What about you?
Yeah, I played the under and first half under here, and the Chargers are going to be significantly slower on offense. They're going to go more run heavy, and the weakness of the Raiders defense, and I like their staff. Talked about I like Patrick Graham. I like how their scheme. They want to prevent explosive plays, and they do a lot of good stuff with their defensive front. The weakness is still the secondary, but the Chargers don't really have the wide receivers to take advantage. So I think that this game will be low scoring, divisional game early on in the season. Minshew's numbers against the blitz are bad, and Minter, he's going to bring the blitz. And this Chargers defense should be much more well-schooled and just in the right position more often. So, yeah, I think Chargers run heavy, slower. Don't think Minshew's going to have much success. And for what it's worth, the Chargers, I have this line about right because the Chargers' home field advantage is just nothing. And if you go back, last year they were 3-6 against the spread at home, 30, 48-2 against the spread at home over the last decade. 30, 48-2. Like the under here, first half and full game. Think the side's about right.
Yeah, agreed. Let's close it out. Lions at the Rams, rematch of that wild card playoff matchup last season. The Rams are on the road. The Lions are favored by 3.5, and the total is 51. Now the Lions added DJ Reader. They already had the number one run defense last year, so the Rams were very reliant on the run, even though they have some good weapons in the pass game. So that kind of plays into the Lions' hands. I think the defense, they're taking steps to making it better. Feels like we say that every year, but how you feeling about this rematch? I know you were on the Rams last time, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes, I don't have a strong feel for this game right now. I'll be writing up this game, so make sure you check out Action Network app, actionnetwork.com. But over the past 3 years, just take the Lions, just bet the Lions. So 35-16 against the spread the last 3 years, 68.6%. That's the best 3-year stretch since back in 2016 through 18 with Brady and the Patriots. And indoor golf, 25-9 against the spread the past 3 seasons. Just stupid. Outdoor, not the same success, but indoors at home. I have questions about what's going on with this Rams team.
Yeah,
some of their moves,
trading Jones.
Their special teams are still bad. Ernest Jones, the interior of the offensive line, they're like thinking about shuffling up. There's no Aaron Donald. I think
Jackson got suspended, by the way, on the tackle. Yeah.
So yeah, I'm keep my eye out for some things here. But I'll have this written up. No strong take as of right now. Maybe lean Lions. But obviously really want to see the improvement in the secondary for the. Now I will say that with leaning over initially, just thinking how this game's going to play out, but just like the Cowboys and Browns, another point for that under is both quarterbacks that haven't played.
Yeah.
Usually see some rust early. Neither of these quarterbacks have played. So maybe there's some rust early on.
Shaky kickers too. Shaky kickers.
So maybe look for a live over. This starts out slow. Because I think if either team gets behind and they got to go throw heavy, they're going to have success. But I'll have this written up. No strong take as of right now.
Yeah, and another thing that could change because I was thinking about the over as well, but the Lions actually might go for more field goals this year because Jake Bates, never kicked in the NFL, won the job, strong leg, and they went with him. They could have had guys who are seemingly more accurate, but they decided to go with Bates. So that tells me that they usually go for it, but they might be willing to kick some long field goals, and then you're kind of letting the kicker variance decide the total.
Well, yeah, then you have a Lions game with Campbell. He's still going to go for a lot. You have the variance there. And then McVay tends to be more conservative in some of those decisions, which, I think in the long run works in the Lions' favor, but introduces more variance into this game. Lions get a couple 4th downs, could extend. If not, might be trouble. But like I said, I'll have it written up. No strong take right now.
All right, that is a wrap for us. Thank you for listening to the Action Network podcast. You can hear more of me every week with my guy, Sean Kerner, talking fantasy, DFS, player projections, props, all that good stuff over on the Fantasy Flex podcast channel. So make sure you subscribe to that as well as the Action Network podcast. And you can hear Stuckey talking college football over on the Big Bets on Campus podcast. Also, be sure to subscribe to the Big Bets on Campus YouTube channel. Really great stuff there from Stuck. I got a couple of boys that just follow Stuck's college football picks religiously every week. So be sure to check him out on that. You can find Stuck on X at Stuckey2. I'm at Chris Raybon. And of course, we're at those same handles on the free award-winning Action Network app. Until week 2, let's get this money.